Winter storms have a way of swallowing sound, movement, even people. In the small town of Redwood Pines, the winter of 2014 was remembered not for its beauty, but for the night a 32-year-old woman stepped out of a crowded shopping mall and vanished into a curtain of white, never to be seen again. Her name was Dana Whitmore, a teacher, a sister, and someone who avoided drama so carefully that her disappearance would stun an entire community. She left work early that Friday afternoon, hoping to pick up a gift for her niece's birthday. Security cameras captured her walking into Pinecrest Mall, brushing snow from her coat, smiling to a store clerk she recognized. 2 hours later, the same camera caught her leaving through the south exit, arms full of bags, coat zipped high, shoulders tight against the howling wind. She turned left, and the world swallowed her. No screams. No footprints discovered. No witnesses who saw her struggle or run. Just nothing. Within hours, a search operation began. Within days, the story went statewide. Within months, the case fell silent, cold enough to match the storm she disappeared into. But years later, when the snow thawed in unexpected places, so did the truth. The morning of January 23, 2014, began like any other for Dana. She left her small apartment on the west side of town, scraping ice from her windshield while her breath fogged the air. Neighbors recalled that she waved politely as she drove off, exhaustion on her face but determination in her posture. Her co-workers remembered her differently that day, distracted, checking her phone more often than usual, jumping slightly whenever the office door opened. But she insisted everything was fine. By noon, the snowstorm warning had escalated to a full winter emergency alert. Schools closed early. Businesses sent employees home. But Dana chose to make one stop before heading back: Pinecrest Mall, the only place still open despite the weather. At 1:37 p.m., she walked into the mall. Security footage showed her browsing calmly, sipping a hot drink, and chatting briefly with a store clerk about the storm. Nothing about her behavior looked unusual. But at 3:09 p.m., she stepped outside into wind strong enough to tilt her sideways. The parking lot was a blur of white. Dana hesitated, turned her head as though she heard someone call her name, and walked toward the far end of the lot. Less than 90 seconds later, she disappeared from view. Dana's car was found several hours later, buried under a sheet of snow but unlocked. Her purse, wallet, and keys were inside. Her cell phone was missing. By midnight, 40 volunteers, police officers, and rescue teams were combing through the snowdrifts around the mall. Snowplows had already destroyed any footprints or trails she might have left. The storm had become an eraser, removing everything except worry. Drones were almost useless. Thermal imaging struggled against sub-zero temperatures. Dogs couldn't track scents in packed snow. Authorities believed she must have collapsed from the cold, wandered disoriented, or taken shelter somewhere. But there was no body, no clothing scraps, no blood, and no indication of an abduction. Her family insisted she wouldn't simply walk off. Her sister, Karen, told investigators that Dana had complained for weeks about someone watching her, though she never shared details. Police found nothing to support the claim. No stalker. No ex-boyfriend. No threats. The community held candlelight vigils. Flyers filled store windows. But as winter dragged on, hope thinned. By spring, the search officially ended. And Dana's case sank slowly into the cold case cabinet, another mystery smothered by snow. 2 years later, in 2016, a maintenance worker repairing drainage pipes behind the mall discovered something odd: a cell phone wedged deep inside the grate. The device was cracked, water-damaged, barely functional. But the serial number confirmed it: Dana Whitmore's missing phone. The strangest detail: it was found hundreds of yards from the route investigators assumed she took. When technicians recovered fragments of data, they found several unsent text messages typed minutes before she vanished. "He's here again. I don't think he followed me inside the mall. Something's wrong." The messages never sent due to poor reception during the storm. Investigators reviewed mall footage again, frame by frame, this time focusing not on Dana but on the background. They noticed something they had overlooked before. A dark SUV idling at the far end of the snow-covered lot. A figure stepping out moments before Dana appeared. A silhouette moving just slightly in her direction. The storm made their features impossible to identify. But it was clear now someone else was out there. Cold case detectives reopened the file. They interviewed mall employees again, hoping memories would surface. Most couldn't recall anything new, except one, a janitor who cleaned the south entrance that day. He remembered a man in a long snowcoat, pacing near the vending machines. He never saw his face, only that the man kept glancing outside as if waiting for someone. When shown enhanced footage, the janitor pointed directly at the shadowy figure near the SUV. "That's him," he whispered. But there was a problem. The SUV's license plate was unreadable. Its make was partially hidden by snow. And the figure never came close enough to other cameras to give investigators a clear shot of his features. Still, a new hypothesis emerged. Dana may not have left the mall alone. Police expanded the search area. They checked rental car agencies, local residences with similar vehicles, and known offenders with stalking behaviors. One name surfaced repeatedly. Mark Riddell, a local landscaper with prior arrests for harassment. He owned a dark SUV. He lived just 5 miles from the mall. And he had once dated a woman who looked strikingly similar to Dana. But when questioned, Mark had an airtight alibi. He was out of town with family during the storm. Receipts and phone records backed him up. The man in the snowcoat remained unidentified. In 2020, 6 years after Dana vanished, Redwood Pines faced another brutal winter. Heavy snowfall caused an old trailer park on the outskirts of town to collapse. During cleanup, workers stumbled on something chilling beneath the frozen debris. A shallow trench, concealed by snow and rotting plywood. Inside were scraps of cloth, beads from a torn bracelet, and shredded plastic bags. Everything was partially decomposed. But one item stood out, a silver pendant necklace, the same one Dana was wearing the day she disappeared. Police cordoned off the area and brought in forensic teams. They dug deeper and uncovered what the snow had been hiding for years. A makeshift underground. Big enough for one person. Lined with insulation, trash bags, and battery-powered lanterns. This was not an accident site. Not a collapse victim. It was a hideout. And the moment detectives found scratch marks on the inside walls, long, desperate gouges made by human hands, they realized Dana had been here. But for how long? And who brought her? Residents near the trailer park often talked about a strange reclusive man who wandered the woods each winter, collecting scrap metal, cardboard, even abandoned clothing. They called him the Winter Hermit. Rarely seen. Never spoken to. He lived in an old cabin deep in the woods, surviving on canned food and small odd jobs offered by locals who pitied him. His name was Elias Turner, a drifter with no family and a criminal record filled with trespassing, petty theft, and suspected break-ins. When investigators arrived at his cabin, they found it empty. Elias was gone. Inside, however, they discovered newspaper clippings of Dana's disappearance, maps of the trailer park area, a dark coat matching the silhouette seen on mall footage, a notebook containing names of women, Dana's among them. With every page turned, the portrait became clearer. Elias Turner wasn't just a harmless hermit. He had been watching Dana long before 2014. But catching him would take another year. In the spring of 2021, temperatures rose quickly, melting snowbanks along the old logging road north of the city. A pair of hikers reported a protruding shape near a drainage culvert, human remains. When investigators arrived, the scene was grim. A partially buried body, preserved by years of winter frost. Nearby lay scraps of clothing matching Dana's. Dental records confirmed the truth. It was her. The positioning of her body suggested she had escaped the underground shelter and fled through the woods, only to succumb to exposure. But a final piece of evidence sealed the case. A rusted pocketknife lying inches from her hand. On its handle were fingerprints. Not Dana's. Not anyone she knew. They belonged to Elias Turner. Detectives launched a statewide manhunt. After 3 weeks, Elias was found hiding in an abandoned barn 40 miles away, severely underweight and barely conscious. When interrogated, he admitted the unthinkable. He had followed Dana for months, convinced she belonged in his world. He lured her outside during the storm, forced her into the makeshift shelter, and kept her there for several days before she escaped. The storm that swallowed Dana had also concealed the monster behind it. Elias was charged with kidnapping, unlawful confinement, and second-degree murder. During trial, prosecutors revealed journals describing his obsession with multiple women across the state. Dana was simply the one he fixated on the longest. The community erupted with grief, anger, and a desire for change. In response, Redwood Pines passed new winter weather safety laws, requiring expanded mall surveillance during storms, mandatory overnight security, shelter checkpoints during emergency blizzards. Dana's family pushed for statewide legislation, eventually helping create the Whitmore Act, which strengthened protocols for missing person investigations during severe weather events. Though justice was served, nothing could erase the years of uncertainty, the pain of not knowing, the lingering thought that Dana might have been saved if the storm hadn't hidden every trace. Yet her story reshaped an entire community, one that vowed no one would ever vanish into the snow again. The disappearance of Dana Whitmore began as a chilling winter mystery, one where snow erased footprints, silence swallowed clues, and time buried the truth under years of frost. For a long while, the world believed she had simply wandered off into the storm. But storms don't lure people. Storms don't stalk them. Storms don't build underground shelters or write names in notebooks. Behind the blinding white chaos of that day was a man who used weather as a weapon and isolation as his cover. Dana didn't just disappear, she was taken. And for years, her story lay frozen under the weight of winter. But truth, like snow in spring, eventually melts. And when it did, the tracks finally pointed to the one person who had counted on them never being found. Her case reminds us that not all dangers hide in darkness. Some hide in daylight, in silence, in the ordinary paths we walk every day. Some even hide in the snow. Thank you for watching. If you want more true crime stories that uncover the truth behind unexplained disappearances, mysteries, and cold cases that were finally cracked, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories just like this. Stay safe, stay aware, and stay warm out there.